Hey everyone, Dr. Zio here again, and I'm sorry about the video's a little bit dark right now. It's raining outside, so I'm not able to get that good lighting. But speaking of dark, Power Rangers Dino Fury episode 16 just aired, and it was really good with a little bit of a little bit of a dark backstory. But let's get into that review of Power Rangers episode what was that 16? I hope you can see that right. Dino Fury episode 16, Ancient History. So, this episode formally introduces us to our Gold Ranger of the season, Ion, who is a Ravkonian Knight. We'll get to the backstory here in just a second, but essentially, we do learn Ion's backstory, how he came to Earth, and kind of more about what happened way back when Zayto's team got lost. We still don't know exactly what that means, but when they got lost, Mucus and Slither also build the monster of the week this week called Wreckmate, another one of Mucus's, or I guess Mucus and Slither's co-creation android, who's going to be their Zord destroyer. Essentially, the plot this week is that Ion's joining the team. We need to get him. We need to get his Zord because the Zord destroyer and Mucus and Slither are on a mission to go find the Zord, and bad things ensue. Let's go ahead and talk about my likes, dislikes, and we'll go ahead and get into conclusion from there. So the first thing I liked about this episode was the fact that we finally got some backstory on what happened, back on Ravkon and when the Rangers got here to Earth, or when Zayto's old team got to Earth. So it turns out that Ion is actually a Ravkonian Knight, one of Zayto's old teammates, and he tells us in a very shocking revelation that the sporks were created by the Ravkonians to fight an impending threat, which I liked that Amelia was not happy about this. The fact that one, Zayto didn't tell them anything, and two, Zayto had the power to stop all this from happening in the first place. I like the conflict that this brought to the rest of this episode. They had that lingering cloud for the rest of the episode, and that was good. I always like my conflict in my Ranger seasons, so this was a very much appreciated moment. But it was also interesting that Ion had his reservations about the Sporks beast being used to fight off whatever threat was coming for the Ravkonians. Ion voiced this concern to Zayto, which Zayto disregarded completely. Zayto said, "Okay, you know what? The government says that the Sporks beasts are okay, so they're okay. They activate the Sporks beast, all hell breaks loose. Then we get into them, then ravaging Ravkon and then having to go to Earth, which it explains why we haven't gotten any backstory yet so far, because Zayto obviously did not want to tell anyone about this, which I can't really fault him. My man, if he tells them about this, they might think of him as maybe someone who's not really ready to be a leader, or they might not trust him in that case, which, Ion obviously takes advantage of this moment to ask, for himself to become leader in place of joining the Dino Fury team. And, I don't know if I necessarily agree with him being leader. In the same way that I don't necessarily agree with Andros. Well, no, I agree with Andros being leader because In Space was supposed to primarily be a space season. They didn't know they'd be going to Earth so often. But with your base of operations being on Earth, right, it doesn't really make sense for Ion to be the leader, because Ion, you've just woken up after whatever billion years of being asleep. Zayto should be the leader because he knows more about Earth at this point. Although I guess he could be your commander and be your informant of earthly happenings and all that. So I guess it could still kind of work. But either way, the backstory here was very much appreciated. And I like the tension between Zayto and Ion in that moment, because you could tell Zayto was apprehensive about all this because he didn't want Ion to divulge that information. We also saw exactly how Ion woke up. So they gave us a look at the final battle between the Rangers and the Sporks, and they're using their Ultra Zord to destroy I think there were like 3 Sporks that they were using this beam attack on, which, that beam attack was strong. Took out a good chunk of the Earth with it. But I don't know if the Spork beasts were too strong or the beam attack was too powerful. But either way, the Ultra Zord was going down, right? there was explosions everywhere inside the Ultra Zord, and they needed to abandon ship. So Zayto and Ion end up teleporting out. We don't see what happens to the other Rangers though. We don't know if they teleported out. We don't know if they were killed in the explosion. I'm assuming they teleported out. I really am, because it wouldn't make sense for them to not have teleported out and then them not being in their resorts. So I guess we'll see more about that, what exactly happened with them in a future episode. But anyway, they teleport out, Ion ends up in the bottom of the sea, and then, fast forwarding up to what's going on now, the Ninja Nexus Prism went into Pine Ridge Harbor, or Pine Ridge Bay, I think it's called. Searched for Ion, saw that he was there, reported to the Morphin Masters, and the Green Morphin Master woke Ion up because they need him in order to defeat Lord Zed. Which, Izzy makes an interesting comment that Lord Zed is no longer on Earth, and he hasn't been seen in a while now. And it makes me wonder, where is my dude? We'll get to that here in the question of the week. Another thing I liked was that Zayto later on in the fight, when they're fighting Wreckmate in the bottom of the ocean, things are going bad. The Zords aren't prepared for underwater battles. So again, things are blowing up and everything, and Ion's panicking, right? Which makes sense. Ion Zord, the Mosa Zord, is a whale. His Zord is specifically built for doing underwater things, right? So it makes sense that he wouldn't necessarily exactly be prepared for this situation, or it's not something that he would encounter too often. So of course he starts to panic, right? And plus he's never been a leader before, so being thrust into this situation where things aren't going the way you planned, it's something that you have to get used to. You have to be prepared for, and Iron wasn't prepared for that because he's never been a leader. So I like that, right? But I like the fact that he asked Zayto, what do we do here? And Zayto's first instinct was to abandon ship. I like that because it's consistent with his character that we've seen throughout the season. We've seen, we saw in this episode that Zayto, or not even Zayto, but one of the other ancient rangers said that we should abandon ship when the Zord was getting destroyed. Zayto obviously obliged, and they abandoned ship, or at least Ion and Zayto did. We also saw in episode 8 when Wolfgang was disassembling the Zord. They didn't know what was happening, Zayto again said, "Okay, let's abandon ship." We know that Zayto is the kind of person who prioritizes the lives of his teammates, in addition to living to fight another day. He's not going to have y'all go down with your ship, because that doesn't make sense for a long-term battle. There was also a scene with Mucus and Wreckmate getting ice cream, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed Mucus in general in this episode. She was pretty funny as normal, but Wreckmate asking what flavors they have, that was cute. Like, you wouldn't expect that from a Zord destroyer monster. There was also a scene earlier where Mucus, when Void Knight went to go check on Santara, Mucus said, "Okay, I am the second mate," or I think it was first mate of the ship, and her taking charge like that was cute, because Void Knight would have been down for that. I like Silly Mucus. Silly Mucus is great. Another thing I liked was that when the Rangers ended up fighting against Wreckmate, I really enjoyed Zayto and Ion teaming up. It really sold the idea that these are two people who have fought together in the past and that they're best friends. Like, it kind of gave me vibes of Antonio and Jaden fighting in the episode after Antonio's debut battle, the one where he actually joins the team proper. Like, it gave me those vibes. Quickly segueing into what I didn't like about that specific moment though, with all the special effects. Like, I think they went a little bit overboard on the special effects, so it kind of made it hard to follow the choreography in that specific fight. They could have just toned that down just a little bit. Speaking of Zayto and Ion, the two also, they just have good chemistry together. Like, I'm genuinely excited to see them interacting with each other more often in the future, and just kind of reminiscing and everything. It's just nice that Zayto finally has somebody who knows exactly what he's been through, because he doesn't really have anyone else to relate to on that level within the team. Ion also has pretty good chemistry with Izzy. They seem like they might be a good pair as well. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Not like a romantic pair, but just like a friendly pair. Now that we've gone over all my likes, let's talk about what I didn't like about this episode. First things first is that I felt like they dumbed down Zayto too much during his initial fight with Mucus. I so Zayto's over here slipping and sliding on fish oil, which I want to think that that was a mandated comedic scene. At the same time, it just didn't make any sense. Like we've seen Zayto in past fights throughout the season. Zayto's not really that kind of a person to have those mishaps within a sports fight. And like Zayto immediately thinks, okay, Mucus is gonna be an easy thing to deal with. Which I mean, yes, she is an easy sports beast to deal with. But Zayto should know that don't go into this battle half cocked. I mean, I guess you could hand wave that away as Zayto's still reeling from Ion divulging the full backstory of the Ravkonians and just Ion being back in general. But I feel like there was a better way that they could have emphasized or kind of hyped up Ion in that moment. It just, yeah, without dumbing down Zayto, because essentially this moment was done so that Ion could go back to the base and say like, hey, I was right, Zayto's not fit for a leader. I'm fit for leadership because I was able to get you guys into and out of that battle safely. But yeah, I just kind of felt like they could have done that a little bit better. That was more consistent with his character. Another thing I didn't like about this episode was the fact that Ion relinquished the leadership very quickly. Like, yes, I understand that they went through a lot in this episode, but I would have liked to see Ion with the leadership role and see that tension carry over into another episode. Like, I wish this was more of a three-parter instead of like a pseudo two-parter, as it were. It would have been nice to see how Ion recovered from them almost losing the Zords, him getting the Zords, and just what his overall mentality was after that moment, and then have another moment kind of similar to this where again it proves that Ion's not ready to be a leader, and as a leader you have to make those difficult decisions that he's not prepared for in a third part, then relinquishing the leadership back onto Zayto. The last thing I didn't like about this episode was that the lesson felt a little bit too on the nose. Ion ends up relinquishing the leadership back to Zayto, but I didn't like the fact that he was like he openly states that, hey, I understand that making these decisions it's hard. I'm not ready to be a leader. And he gives the leadership back to Zayto. That activates his Zord and everything. They have their bonding moment. But I feel like there was a better way of voicing all of that. Maybe it was the lines in the episode itself, but I don't know. It felt a little bit too on the nose. It felt like something that Mick would have said in an episode of Ninja Steel, and I think we're past that. We've gotten Mick back. We've proven that the writing can be better in this season. That the writing is better in this season. But yeah, I just felt like that could have been handled just a little bit better. If anything, maybe he should have said that at all. Maybe he should have just apologized to Zayto and said, hey man, I'm not ready to be a leader yet. That's not where I am right now. And then have his Zord respond to that bond and that those two still have as friends and as teammates. But oh well. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It did have a little bit of a darker flair to it, and I appreciated that. I also like the camaraderie between Zayto and Ion, and just having Ion on the team is gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to more of him. But yeah, on to the questions of the week. Question number 1 is, where's Lord Zed? For the Morphin Masters to bring Ion back into play, or at least the Green Morphin Master in this case, to bring Ion back into play because Lord Zed is now here, that's a big thing. Like, they need all 6 Rangers to defeat Lord Zed, but Izzy said that Lord Zed hasn't been on Earth for a while now. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a month at least. Where is he exactly? Have the Morphin Masters seen something that we haven't? We know that they're always watching, right? Are they always watching the Rangers specifically? Or are they watching the known universe in general? Yeah, I would kind of like to know that. Question number 2 is, who were the forces of evil that were approaching Ravcon? The Ravkonians went so far as to make super powerful sporks to fight against this force of evil, but we don't know who it was. And the Ravkonians specifically programmed the sporks to be able to grow a giant size, which means that they probably thought that whomever they were going to be fighting would be growing giant size as well, or maybe they just wanted the power to escalate things if need be. But who was coming that they needed that much firepower to deal with? Could that have been Lord Zed? I think it might have been, because again, this takes place millions of years ago. Before the Z Wave. Before the events of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, or at least the present timeline at that point in time. Zed. Zed could have been still forming his empire, or at the height of his empire. So is that the threat that they were going to be dealing with? Hell, maybe it was the United Alliance of Evil. Maybe Dark Spectre specifically sent Lord Zed to deal with the Ravkonians for whatever reason, and that's what they were preparing for. I want to know more about this. Dino Fury's story is really proving to be interesting, and I can't wait to see some of these questions answered. But anyway, if you've seen the episode, let me know what y'all think about it in the comment section below. As always, I'm Dr. Zio. Thank you for watching. I hope you all have a good week. Stay safe as always. Mask up. Get your vaccine if you can. And until next time, peace.